You've got to give yourself more breathing room than you think you need. It's Dr. Mary, and today's question comes from a viewer who wants to know how to get in tune with her body's natural cycles and rhythms, the seasons, cycles and rhythms, and how you can really harness their power. I want to share a couple of stories with you. The first is several years back, I guess it really 2013 was a very trying year for me. 2016, I know, was a very trying year for a lot of the women and in my tribe, in my circles. So whatever the year was, but 2013 was that year for me. I got divorced, I moved, I broke my heel for the second time in a year. I turned 40. There was so much going on in a very short period of time. And one of the things that really struck me was in the fall of 2013, after I'd gotten divorced and turned 40 and broken my heel and a lot of stuff had happened, moved, I wasn't healing. I was stuck. So the second time I broke my heel, it took over 6 months for it to actually heal enough that I could walk on it. I remember I was so frustrated because the old me, if I found a problem or something I didn't like, I would tackle it like a dog going after a bone. I was just that kind of, I'm going to fix this, I'm going to solve it, nothing's going to get me down kind of energy. And I was sitting with one of my friends who was a spiritual teacher, mentor, minister, and we were talking about my frustration about my heel not healing. And I was about 3 months in at this point. So I had just had another set of x-rays, no change from the 3 months before. And I was so frustrated about how my heel wasn't healing. And she turned to me and she said, we were having tea. She said, do you want to heal? And I said, well, of course I do. And I proceeded to list for her all of the things I was doing to heal. I was taking all these supplements. I was doing all these exercises. It was all of these things I was doing. And she said, no. When are you going to stop and let your body do its thing? Your body knows how to heal. You're just getting in its way by trying to force the issue, by trying to force it to happen. You need to sit back, relax, take a lot of rest, and let your body heal. This was such an aha moment for me. And I still didn't really like her answer because I wanted to heal and I wanted to heal yesterday. It had already been 3 months at that point, and I still had 3 more months to go in my journey of healing my heel. But it gets to one of the most powerful lessons that I learned in 2013, which is you have to honor your body's cycles and rhythms. The other two being life happens for you, not to you, which we've talked about before, and you can't fight the universe. You're never going to win. So in January of 2013, it was New Year, new motto. I decided I was going to try to just go with the flow more and be in tune with me and my body and listen to my heart more and stop fighting against the universe, because that was a game I was never going to win, and start really trying to ask, okay, why is this happening for me? What is the lesson here? Fast forward. Last summer of 2016, so from this recording, it's about 8 months ago, I was pretty darn depressed. It was a level of depression that I had not experienced really since the passing of my father, which had been 7 years before that time. So it kind of came out of nowhere and it sat with me for a few months. Now, because I had learned by this point, you can't fight the universe, I let myself sit in my depression and ask, okay, what's the lesson here? And one of the things that I started doing was painting. And I hadn't painted in a couple of years. I hadn't given myself permission or time. So I tell you this story Because one of the paintings I ended up being called to paint was this. It's the Wheel of the Year. And its lesson is really kind of all three of those in one. Life happens for you, not to you. You can't fight the universe. And you have to follow your natural cycles and rhythms. Now, part of this is dictated by where you live. Just look outside. So in my case, when I'm recording this, I'm in the Northern Hemisphere and it's February. So it's when typically the crocuses start to poke their heads out. I was actually just on Saturday. I was looking at my garden and I was seeing what was starting to emerge, and some of my plants are starting to gradually green up a little bit. The grass is starting to green up a little bit, but it's still February. So it's kind of the beginnings of spring, but we're not there yet. So for the Northern Hemisphere, spring starts around March 21st. That's when fall starts for the Southern Hemisphere. So if we follow the Wheel of the Year, and we talked about a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about the frustration of February, the Wheel of the Year really kind of helps you know what Mother Nature is doing, so you can maybe take that as a cue for what you should be doing. So what I've learned over the past several years in working with the Wheel of the Year is that I have to honor my own body's cycles and rhythms. They may or may not be totally 100% in alignment with Mother Nature. So for me, I follow 3 different cycles and rhythms. The first is the Wheel of the Year. So I look at, okay, as I record this, it's the end of February. We're almost to March, which is in the Northern Hemisphere. It's spring. You can look outside. It's still, we got about 1 inch of snow last night, so winter's still here, despite the fact that the flowers are starting to poke their little heads up out of the ground. It's still not spring yet. And so I'm still in that partial cocoon emergence mode that we talked about a couple of weeks ago, with the energy of February being 1 foot in winter, 1 foot in spring for those of us in the Northern Hemisphere. So we're still there. We're still in that energy. And so that frustration that a lot of us are feeling, it's like, oh, we're not there yet, but we're so close, we can see it. And then it does something like snow to remind us that we're not there yet. So one of the ways that I follow and honor cycles and rhythms is by looking at the Wheel of the Year. So spring is the time to plant the seeds and nourish them and figure out what goals you want to set for your year and start making your big dreams and your big plans. Summer is that time of birth. Just look outside, right? Summer is the time when the trees are in full bloom and the fruit is coming out and the flowers are out, and if you grow vegetables, they are out. Fall is our harvest time, where we harvest our late summer, early fall, mid-fall, and then late fall veggies, our winter squash, that kind of thing. It's a harvest, it's a gratitude, it's a time when we start to kind of hole up and prepare for winter. So we have that big harvest so we can put away what we need to prepare ourselves with winter, which is really the time to go within and hibernate, just like Mother Nature goes within and hibernates. It doesn't mean nothing's happening. There's very, very, very much happening under the surface, but you may not see it on the outside. So that's the first cycle that I follow, is really looking at if something's going on with me. The first thing I do is I look outside. Okay, well, what's the season? Where are we in the Wheel of the Year? The second thing that I've noticed, and this is true for some of my clients, not all, is that I'm sensitive to the moon, the phases of the moon. I tend to get more emotional around the new moon and around the full moon. Now, in ancient times, the moon cycles actually, women's menstrual cycles were lined up with the moon cycles. So that would really make sense. Now, in modern times, with all of our fluorescent lights, many of us no longer have menstrual cycles lined up with the cycles of the moon, where we would, in ancient times, women would ovulate on the full moon and bleed on the new moon. Not necessarily true anymore, but if you're still menstruating, you may notice that your energy levels, your mood, your emotions vary during different phases of your menstrual cycle. So that's something you can easily track. And then that way, it's like, oh, where am I in my cycle? Oh, yeah, I always get emotional around this time. Just information to have. The last thing, though, is to listen to your body. So I'm painting this 8 months ago, which was summer at that time. And for just a split second, my inner mean girl in the midst of my depression was saying, it's summer. You're supposed to be creating and blossoming and blooming. Why aren't you doing that? Because my body was telling me I needed to have a little mini hibernation. I needed to have a little mini winter in summer because I had a really stressful spring and I needed time to rest and recuperate. So, yes, follow the wheel of the year. If it serves you, follow your menstrual cycle. If you're still menstruating, follow the moons if you feel like you're sensitive to the moon. But above all, listen to your body. You are not an Energizer bunny, nor am I. I had to learn that lesson the hard way. But our bodies, if you just tune in, will tell you exactly how they feel and what you need to do to really nourish yourself and take care of you. So I'm coming off of some sort of head cold. I'm on day 6. And so what I've been doing is just listening to my body. I'm still in my PJs because I've canceled all of my out of the house meetings today. I'm just not up for it. So I get that you may not have the luxury of doing that every day. I don't either. But when you can, listen to your body and honor what it tells you. And this is something you can do as a daily practice every morning. As part of my morning power hour, which we've talked about before, I ask, how am I feeling today? What messages is my body telling me? And for the past, really the whole month of February, it's been telling me you need to rest and you need to recharge. And so even though I'm so psychologically ready for spring to be here, between the snow we got yesterday and this little sickness that started at the end of last week, my body, the weather is reminding me we're not there yet. It's not quite time to spring into action just yet. So I hope that that serves you and gives you a few different ways to think about how to honor your own natural cycles and rhythms. Above all, listen to your body. Do those daily morning check-ins. How am I feeling today? Where's my energy level? Body, what messages do you have for me? Any of those questions would be the kind of questions you could ask yourself on a daily basis. Honor the wheel of the year. Even Mother Nature doesn't bloom all year round. We aren't supposed to go and go and go and go and go with no rest and recharge. So look to Mother Nature if you need a reminder of cycles and rhythms. And then finally, if it serves you, track your menstrual cycle, track the moon cycle, and just for a few months, just notice, does my energy change? Does my mood change? And that, it's just information for you to have, for you to go back. I've been doing this for a while now. And a couple of weekends ago, I went back and I was like, wow, there really is a pattern here. And that's how I know that I'm more emotional right around new moon and full moon, is I was just tracking it for a while. And then, went back and looked at the past 4 or 5 months and my evening reflections and looked at what the moon phase was. I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah. That week leading up, I really get more emotional to the new moon and the week leading up to the new moon and the full moon. I really get more emotional. So I know that about me. And that's, a cue for me to cut myself some slack. I'm feeling a little emotional. Oh, moon's changing. It's okay. It'll pass. So I hope that that answers your question, and I hope that that serves you and helps you figure out how to harness not only your body's messages, but the wheel of the year and maybe even the moon cycle or your menstrual cycle as a way for you to really get into touch with what is my body telling me and how can I best harness those periods of time that are times of creation and birth when I have loads of energy within a given month, within a given season to get stuff done, or when I just want to hibernate and go within and curl up and read a good book or journal and give yourself permission to do that. I had a client the other day said, I'm a single parent, I've got a full-time job, how am I going to have time to do this? 5 minutes. I promise you can find 5 minutes each day to check in with yourself. Start where you are. I'll be back next week to talk a little bit more about how to listen to your body and honor yourself. But for now, start where you are. 5 minutes. First thing in the morning, last thing before bed, when the kids are already asleep, whatever works for your schedule. But start that daily check-in. How am I feeling today? What do I need? And make sure you get it. It doesn't take long, I promise. You've got 5 minutes. Much love. I'll see you next week.